Hey everyone, thanks for tuning into this video. Today I'm going to talk about modes in music theory. There's a lot of videos out there that do a pretty good job of explaining it, but I think they kind of miss the mark on a few important things about modes, so I'm going to try and cover that stuff today. If you're at all confused by modes, you should like this video. You'll see the light at some point. I'm going to do a good job of explaining how the modes are built and how they all work with each other. And I'm going to also reference the guitar in this, so you'll be able to see not only how modes work on the piano, but you'll be able to see it on the guitar as well. So before I get too deep into the discussion, let's just go over something kind of basic here first, all right? So if we look at the piano here, and we just go from C and then straight up on all the white notes until we get to C. This is what we call a C major scale. And it's just all the white notes, starting at C and ending at C. That's a C major scale. C major is also the name of your first mode. So this mode here is Ionian, all right? Now if we play all those same notes, but instead of starting on C, we start on D. So if we go D, E, F, G, A, B, C, and D, from here to here, that's what we call Durian. That's our second mode. So Ionian is here. This is Ionian. And if we start on D playing all the same notes, that's what we call Durian. If we play all those same notes but we start on E, that's our third mode, and that's what we call Frisian. If we start on F and play all those same notes, that's what we call Lydian. That's our fourth mode. If we start on G, play all the same notes, that's our next mode. It's our fifth mode called Mixolydian. If we start here on A, play all the same notes, that's our next mode. That's Aeolian. And then if we start on B and play all those same notes, that's our last mode. That's Locrian. So from C to C, that's Ionian. D to D, that's Durian. E to E is Frisian. F to F is Lydian. G to G is Mixolydian. A to A is Aeolian. And B to B is Locrian. If we were to keep going, we'd end up at C to C, which is Ionian, which is where we started. So you can see how those modes work. These are the modes. All right? So now that you got that, I'm going to explain how these modes are built. In order to do that, you have to understand what a half-step interval is and what a whole step interval is. On virtually all instruments, we use half-step and whole step intervals to build scales. They're patterns of whole step and half step intervals to build pretty much any scale. Doesn't matter if it's a major scale or a minor scale, even a pentatonic scale, doesn't really matter. It just uses a combination of half step and whole step intervals in order to build that scale. And we use those on the piano and the guitar and virtually all instruments. So let's learn what a half step interval is first. We're going to start here on C. And if we're going to play a half step interval, the idea is just to go from one note to the very next note. And if you look here, the very next note is not this one, it's this black one in the middle here. Okay, so a half step interval, we go from C to D flat. And another half step interval, we're just going to go up to the next one. See how this works? We're just going up one at a time. When we get to E, we go to F, because F is the very next one. And then after F, we go to G flat, and then to G, and then to A flat. We're just going up one note at a time here, okay? This is also known as a chromatic scale. These are all half step intervals. And very, very basic, all right? So how does that work on the guitar? Well, with the guitar here, you have a bunch of frets, and every fret is separated by a half step interval. So this note to this note is a half step interval. From here to here is a half step. From here to here is a half step. From here to here is a half step. These are all half step intervals. And it doesn't matter which string you're on. We could go to this next one. From here to here is a half step, another half step, another half step, another half step. So all of the notes on the guitar, they're separated by half step intervals. in the same way that all the notes on the piano are separated by half-step intervals. So that's a half-step interval on the piano and a half-step interval on the guitar. If you got a chance, sit in front of a piano, take another look at this stuff so you can solidify in your mind a little bit better. Now that you understand what a half-step interval is, let's go over the whole step interval. All right, we'll start here on C just like we did earlier. And a whole step interval, we're going to skip the half step and go to the next one. All right, see what we're doing there? We're going from here, skipping over this one, and going to that one. So these are whole step intervals, okay? We're skipping over the one in the middle and going to that one. When we get to E, we skip over the F and go to G flat. See that? That's a whole step interval because we're skipping over the one in the middle. Another whole step from here would be to this next black one here. We're skipping over this one in the middle. Whole step, another whole step, another whole step. We're going to C. We're skipping over this one. See, these are all whole step intervals. If we're down here, we're going to go whole step. We're going to go to this next black one. We're going to skip over this one in the middle. And then the next one, we go to this one. We're going to skip over this one. So we go from here to here. These are all whole step intervals. All right? So these are your half step intervals going up one at a time, chromatically. And whole step intervals, we go up every other key. Got it? Whole step, whole step, whole step, whole step, whole, 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 whole. How does that work on the guitar? Well, since every fret is separated by half-step intervals, every other fret is a whole step. So if we start here, when we go to there, that's a whole step interval because we're skipping over the one in the middle. From here to here would be a whole step. From here to here would be a whole step. And again, it doesn't matter what string you're on. We can be right here, and a whole step is going to skip over this one and go to that one. So every other fret is a whole step. Down here, same thing. If we're here, a whole step just goes to that one. So your whole step intervals, it just skips over every other one. All right, these are all whole step intervals here. Got it? So now that I've explained what half step intervals are and I've explained what whole step intervals are, let's go ahead and build Ionian. Let's build our first scale. We're going to start on the note C, and we're going to end on C. And if you look here at all these white keys, you'll notice that they're actually separated by a pattern of whole step and half step intervals. All right? So let's take a look at that pattern, and we're going to write them down as we go along. So we're starting on the note C, and on this piece of paper I've written an R here at the top, okay? So that R means root. In this case, our root note is C. But I'm not going to write the note here because the note itself really isn't important. What's more important is the interval going off of your root note to the next note and the next note and the next note in order to learn how to build these scales. So if we start at C and we want to play a C major scale, what's the next note in a C major scale? It's D. And if you look here, you'll notice that's actually a whole step interval. So let's go ahead and write that down. We have our root note here. We'll just draw a little arrow, go over here, and we're going to draw a W. Okay? So the first interval in a Ionian major scale is a whole step because we're going from C to D. So now let's continue here. What's the next note in a C major scale? It's E. And if you'll notice, going from D to E is another whole step. So let's go ahead and write that down. Here's another W for a whole step. Got it? Root, whole step, whole step. And let's continue on. If we're going to the next note in a major scale off of E, the next note is just another white key, and we're going to F. But if you notice here, this is not a whole step. This is a half step interval. Okay, going from E to F is a half step. So we'll go ahead and write that down. an H for half step. And then let's continue. We're going to the next note in C major scale. We're on F. The next note is G. And if you look here, you can see that also is a whole step interval. In the same way we went from C to D, we're now going from F to G. Another whole step interval. So we'll write that down. There's a W for whole step. And now we're at G. We're going to the next note in the C major scale, and that's going to be A. So going from G to A, what's that? It's just another whole step, right? We're skipping over the black one in the middle. G to A is another whole step. So we're going to go write that down here. Another W. There's our pattern so far. And then now we're going from the next note in the C major scale. We go from A to B. And if you look here, you'll notice that also is a half step. We're skipping over the black one in the middle. Excuse me, that's a whole step going from A to B. Whole step interval. So we'll write that down here too. So another W. So there's our pattern so far. And then to finish the scale off, we're going to go from B to C where we started. And if you look, that's a half step interval. Just in the same way we went from E to F, which is a half step. Now we're going from B to C, which is a half step interval. So we'll finish this off by just drawing another little arrow here, and we'll put an H up above our root note. All right? So now let's look at that. What have we got here? We got root, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, and then a half step to go back home to our root note. All right? So is there a name for that pattern? What do we call it? That's also what we call Ionian. That's our first mode. Remember, I showed that to you earlier when I just played the white keys. Well, now I'm showing you how that scale is built, and this is the pattern to build it. We pick a root note, and we go whole step, then a half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, and then a half step to go back home. All right, so that's Ionian. All right, my handwriting's a little sloppy, but you get the idea. That's Ionian. This is the pattern for Ionian. You can play Ionian from anywhere on the keyboard. You can pick any note you want. Just follow that pattern, and you will have played Ionian. You will have played a major scale. So I could do it from here, root, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, half step. And that would be C sharp major. Root, whole, half, whole, half. I could do it from here, root, whole, half, whole, half. And that would be like G sharp major or A flat major, whatever you want to call it. I think it's A flat major. So A flat, B flat, C, D flat, E flat, F, G, A flat. So that's just Ionian. Oops. But we're playing it starting on A flat instead of starting on C. The exact same scale, just starting at a different spot. Can you do it on the guitar? Yes, you can. Just pick any note that you want and follow that pattern, root, whole, half, whole, half, and you will have played a major scale. You will have played Ionian. So off the top of my head, I think it's this would be a root note, and then whole step, and then a whole step to here, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step. I messed up the end there, but I think it's actually whole step, half step, and then whole step. So that's how that would work. It's the same concept on the piano as it is on the guitar. You have half step and whole step intervals here on the fretboard. There's patterns for that scale. You can play them on the guitar. You can play them on the piano. Root, whole, half, whole, half. And again, just like on the piano, you can pick any note that you want and just follow this pattern and you will have played Ionian. All right? So now that we got that, what would happen if we changed our root note? Let's say instead of making this our root note, what would happen if we wanted to make this one our root note? So then what would the pattern be? It'd be root, whole half, whole, 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 half, whole, right? That's a different pattern. That's different than starting here because this pattern is whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. This pattern is whole, half, whole, 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 half, whole. So what's the name of that pattern? That's what we call Durian. That's how Durian is built. Durian is built on a root note, whole step, then a half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step, and then a whole step to go back home. Can you do it on the piano? Yes, you can pick any key that you want. Just follow this pattern, starting at Durian, whole, half, whole, 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 half, whole, and you will have played Durian. Can you do it on the guitar? Yes. Pick any string you want, any fret you want, follow this pattern, and you will have played Durian. So now let's keep going. What would happen if we were to start here and follow this pattern? Root, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step. See, that's a different pattern. It's different from root, whole, half, whole, 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 half, whole. Now we're going root, half, whole, 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 half, whole, whole. It's a little bit different of a pattern. Is there a name for that pattern? Yes, that's our third mode. That's Frisian. All right, so that's Frisian. Frisian, I may have spelled that wrong, but anyway, starts here, half step, whole, 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 half, whole, whole. That's Frisian. And just like Durian and Ionian, you can play it starting on any key that you want. Just follow this pattern, and you will have played Frisian. Can you do it on the guitar? Yes. Pick any fret that you want, follow this pattern, and you will have played Frisian. What happens if we were to start here on this one? What's our pattern then? It's root, whole, 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 half, whole, whole, half. What's the name of that one? Lydian. That's the pattern for Lydian. Root, whole, 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 half, whole, whole, half. You can play it from anywhere on the keyboard. Just follow the pattern and you will have played Lydian. How about on the guitar? Yes, pick any string that you want, follow this pattern, and you will have played Lydian. What if we started on this note? This is what we call Mixolydian. That's Mixolydian. Mixolydian is root, whole, whole, half, whole, whole, half, whole. You can play it anywhere on the piano, start wherever you want, follow the pattern, I think you're getting this now, and you will have played Mixolydian. And same thing for the guitar. Pick any note you want, follow the pattern, and you will have played it. What if we started here on this note and made that our root note? That's Aeolian. What's the pattern for Aeolian? Root, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step. Aeolian is also our minor scale. You'll notice that Ionian and Aeolian, they basically share all the same notes, right? Because if we're starting on C, we go C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Well, if we're starting on Aeolian at A, it's A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. See, it's all the same notes. You're just starting in a different spot. They refer to that as major and minor relative. But the truth of the matter is that these are actually all relative to each other. It's Ionian Durian relative. Because if we were going C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, but instead started on Durian, it would be D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D. It's all the same notes, it just starts in a different spot. So these are relative to each other in the same way that major and minor are relative to each other. But music instructions, they don't teach a major Durian relative. They don't teach a major Lydian relative. They don't teach a major Mixolydian relative. They just teach you the major and the minor because most music is built on that. It's the easiest to understand. But the truth of the matter is that all the modes, they're all completely related to each other in the same way that Ionian and minor are related to each other. They share all the same notes. It's just the intervals that change depending on where you start within the pattern. This last one here, this is what we call Locrian. and